Hello guys! I just received my copy of the ASL counters from the Broken Ground design by Alan Findlay. This is the set I get for the review purpose, so I decided that it will be the best to make this short, or maybe not so short, movie about these counters to show you all of them, compare with the official ASL counters, and so on. As you, most of you at last know, English is not my first language, but I hope this video will be understandable and help you to see how these counters are, and are they really different from the official ASL counters, and if it is for good or for bad. A set that I received contains 2 packs of counters. One of them covers French infantry units, squads, half squads, leaders, heroes, and special weapons, or concealment counters. The other one contains Poles, SS, Southern Europe Partisans, and Axis minors. Of course, these are not the entire counters for each side. These are only the samples, but they are good if you want to see how they are. I think that many of you might be interested mostly in the French counters, because a French module for Advanced Squad Leader, Code de Guerre, is out of print, and getting this is not an easy thing. So if you like to have French units, you have a problem. So Broken Ground might be probably the best answer, save to some Amazon or eBay offers with crazy prices, mostly. So let's take a closer look at these counters. As you can see, we have here squads, half squads, crews, both kind of crews. I have to say that I especially like this 127 small crews. Wounded leaders, fanatic leaders, armor leaders, special weapons, leaders, heroes, and concealment counters. I have to say that I really like the idea of the color counters. I met this for the first time at Bounding Fire counters of the Poland in Flames expansion, and I have to say that these are, in my opinion of course, much better than the official ASL counters. I really hope if Multiman Publishing will ever think about re-releasing Advanced Squad Leader, they will go this way. We have 21st century after all, and all these projects from the 80s, of course, they're old school like, might be nice for especially older player, but if we like to have more players and spread our hobby among youngest players, I think making it eye-catchy would be very important. And that's why I like these color counters better. As you may see, there are some differences from the official ASL counters. First, we have different counters for the fanatic units. This white number, the third one, as you may see, 9, 8, and so on, means that the counter is fanatic. So instead of placing fanatic counter on the unit, we just replacing a squad or half squad with a counter of fanatic squad and half squad. I really like this idea because it makes our stacks on the board much smaller. The same goes for the wounded units. As you may see, there are counters with this red cross for the single man counters, and these are wounded counters. Also, as you may see, we have here wounded fanatics leader. So, instead of taking a leader, placing on it wound counter and fanatic counter, if such situation appear, we can use just a single counter. I think this is a change for good. Next, we have special weapons counters. These are pretty normal. The only thing I would complain about them is that there are no names of the types of the weapons here. Of course, some of you may say this is not a very important thing, but I like it. I like especially if these are weapons you don't know much about. Of course, if you have American guns, German guns, you probably know what was Browning, MG42 and so on. But let's say, how much of you knows well what kind of weapons French army used? I guess not so many. Next, we can move to the Polish counters. As you may see, okay, this will be better, I hope. They use the same color code as Bounding Fire, as you may see, almost, because maybe they Broken Ground uses a bit more yellow background. I like both kind of colors, so I wouldn't complain about it. I'm really happy that Poles have their own counters, not the random Allied minors. After all, Poland was among the biggest armies of the Allies, so I think they deserve their own counters. Of course, I may still wait for the Polish counters for the Polish army at the west or east, but that's the thing I hope someone will do in the future. Next, we have SS counters. Yes, cool, cool black and white. Of course, SS guys were a bunch of murderers and criminals, but I guess we all agree that their counters were always awesome, and I really like these black and white counters. Much better than the official ASL counters with their SS mark on the right corner of the counter. As you may notice, their all numbers are in white, so there would be a problem with fanatic mark. So, as you may see, we have light blue instead of white to mark fanatics. Next, we have Partisans. Partisans were one of the things I would really complain at the Beyond Valor. Why? Because in the original idea, all the partisans used Soviet counters. Of course, it may sound perfectly fine for the people from the USA, but here in Europe it would be not very good. You know, there was quite often that partisans fought against other partisans. For example, in Poland, Polish democratic partisans fought against Polish communist partisans or against Soviet partisans. In Yugoslavia, Yugoslavian or rather Serbian royalist partisans fought against Serbian communist partisans, and so on and so on. So I like that the Broken Ground decided to make more partisan counters. Their idea is to create different counters for Western Europe partisans, Eastern Europe partisans, and Balkan partisans. This gives us three kinds of counters with original ASL Soviet partisans. This gives us totally four kinds of partisans, which is much better. For example, if I would like to create a scenario about Polish army after 1945 fighting Ukrainian partisans, then I would need Soviet army counters for Poles and Soviet partisans for UPA, for Ukrainians. But thanks to this, I would be able to use Eastern Europe partisans for Ukrainians and regular Soviet units for Poles, which is much better. So, congrats for this idea. Next, we have Axis minors. Now, let us move to the part that many of you might be interested the most, to compare the broken ground counters with official ASL counters. I've decided to use SS counters because I'm lucky to have official ASL counter of SS squad, Bounding Fire production counter of the SS squad, and broken ground design SS squad. These three are different, so you may see and judge which are the better, which you would like to use the most. As you may notice, the biggest difference is the size of the numbers here. When it comes to this, broken ground definitely wins. They have the bigger numbers, so especially if you are older player, they will be definitely eye friendly, much more than the other two. Also, you may see that the smoke exponent was moved here. This white dot with black 2 is smoke exponent now, instead of this small 2 next to the firepower. Is it good? I think yes. It's still small, but it's better visible. What the other thing? I think that the letter that indicates the number of the unit was moved onto the upper left corner of the counter. The other things are but the fact I think I like the most in the broken ground counters is one counter for a leader despite his status. So, let's say we have this French leader and he was wounded. We have to cover him with a wound counter. Being wounded, he went fanatic. We have to count it with this fanatic counter. And if he is stacked with his one or two squads, and these squads have, for example, special weapon, this makes this squad tall and taller. But if we would use a broken ground idea, so let's say he was wounded again, we took wounded leader counter and we have him here. And let's say he went fanatic, so we are just replacing him again. Next thing are help counters. I think that I really like the idea of counters acquisition for each nationality. Of course, we are using normally all these Beyond Valor standard target acquisition counters, but I guess most of you are like to use this cool black and white, but let's say it's much better for the purpose of making everything clear to have such counters with each color for a different nationality. In my batch of counters I get these 5 target acquisition types of counters, but I guess they have more for all nationality in Advanced Squad Leader. The other new thing is concealment counters. Once again, for all nationalities. If we would compare with ASL counters, we would see not a big difference, save to the bigger question mark. But if we turn them back, you see. This is one of the few things I would complain in the Broken Ground design. The counter exhaust mark is, I think, much better when it comes to the clear look here in the official ASL than here. Here, these IPC and CC DRMs are not as clearly visible as here. That's one of the few things I said I would like to complain, but a kinda similar problem appears with special weapons counters. So let's take all these. You see, let me have official ASL counter, and let's say bounding fire counter. Broken ground counter is in the middle. So you may see, I think that still classic ASL is much more visible, but okay, let's say this is a question of the colors, but let's compare these two. Let's make them, oh yes, this is good. I think still bounding fire counter has better visible reaper and destruction number than here. This is another thing I would complain. But from the other hand, as you may see, Broken Ground is using bigger numbers, bigger letters than the Bounding Fire. Nothing to say about Multiman, which has smallest. So, time for some summary. In this mail I was asked if I would like to use these counters better than the ASL counters or not. Well, a tough question actually. Of course I get used to the original ASL counters, so I'm not sure. There are some things I really like in these counters, but there is one thing I should state. If I would have to introduce a new player to the hobby, to the Advanced Squad Leader, I would definitely prefer to use these counters. Why? Because they are simply better looking. They look a bit more modern than the original ASL counters. They are cool, colorful, and so if I would have to show ASL to the new player, especially the younger one, I would definitely like to use something like this. You know, they say we are playing with the rules and stuff, but actually we are also playing with our own eyes. We like or not what we see, and these counters are made to like them. Just to look at them and see, oh, how cool, they are colorful, and so these numbers are all bigger. You don't need a magnifying glass to see what's written there, even if you look from far above. So that's what I like. Also, if you need French counters, your options are pretty limited. Of course, you can check for the French module made by MMP, but it is out of print. It is available sometimes on Amazon or eBay, but with insane prices. So, if you need French counters, this is where you should look them. I think they made a really good job, and this is something I'm gonna definitely use if I'll play any scenario with French. Also, the thing I really like are these target acquisition counters with color matching to the units. This thing makes everything much easier to check on the board. So all in all, despite some minor cons, there are much more pros here, and I think I really like these counters. So I recommend you to check them out and decide by yourself. Hope I was able to help you with that. Hope this movie was understandable and it wasn't a waste of time of me and you. Thank you.